Hello, this is Ryan Ellis. I'm here with
Tijani,
the man, the myth, the legend. We are here starting an interfaith dialogue between Islam and Christianity. And today's question, Quran, Surah 16, verse 106. Do you want me to read it from this translation? Is that okay?
That would be good for the audience so
All
they
right.
understand what's going on.
Yes, sir.
One second, let me help this person.
Yes, sir.
Okay, boss said you got it. Okay.
Your boss is very kind. He's a very kind man.
Yeah.
Quran 16:106. Whosoever disbelieved in Allah after his belief, except him who is forced thereto, and whose heart is at rest with faith, but such as open their breasts to disbelief, on them is wrath from Allah, and theirs will be a great torment. This verse, in my understanding, talks about denying your faith as a Muslim in order to preserve your life, and that is allowed. Can you expound upon that?
Yes, in Islam, there is a duality. And what I mean by duality, as I'll explain, first there is the issue of hypocrisy and sincerity. Now, something about his hypocrisy and sincerity is it's not something that you can see. Just as a person who has the appearance of a believer and speaks like a believer, because also you find in the Quran where Allah is telling the Prophet Muhammad that there are people around you who look to be believer and they please you, but they're not. They're hypocrites. Condemnation for the hypocrite is much more severe than the outright infidel. It also says in the Quran, there's no compulsion in a religion. So that means if you don't find that the revelation of the Prophet Muhammad or what comes in the Quran or Islam makes any sense to you, then there's no problem. You're not to be forced or compelled. I know there's a lot of people who are Muslim who say that you're forced and compelled, but no, that's not actually what the Quran says. That's not what the Prophet Muhammad did. So you're not to be forced and compelled to be a believer. But if you're a person who voluntarily becomes a believer and then pretends to be one, but inside you have a hypocrisy, then the condemnation against you is worse. So likewise, if a person externally appears to be normal or acceptable or the usual in order to lessen the friction in their own life, but inside they are actually a believer, then there's no blame for them in that. Because what happens is the Most High, He knows what's in our hearts. And He knows the things that we show and we don't show. There's also another verse in the Quran, which I don't recall exactly the verse right now, the number in this place, but it also says that the people in hell, when they're in hell, and they're going around, after a while they're going to start saying to themselves, how is it that we don't see such and such, such and such and such and such? Is it that we overlooked them, or did we have did we falsely estimate them while we was alive? So maybe they was all involved in sins or things which were considered inappropriate behavior and lifestyle, and so they thought that everybody who was a participant there was all of the same orientation or persuasion. But after they died and they faced their judgment, the Most High sorted the people according to their real intention that's inside of them. The Quran mentions this almost to indicate that it's not just off of appearances alone is not the way to determine whether a person really is a believer or not a believer. This verse here is 16:106. The Quran is such a book that we read it all at a time for revisions. Even if you don't remember the exact place, you kind of remember the passage. Okay, let me see what we did. 16:106. Man kafara billahi. Okay, so whosoever disbelieves after being believed, except for the one who ukriha wa qalbi. Okay, so except for the one who does so, but they does so resentfully, like they're doing it because they're under duress. Mutma'inna, for those who willingly open their breast to disbelief, upon them is the wrath from the Most High and a great punishment. So he's saying that a person who disbelieves after having believed except for one who's compelled, then there is the wrath from the Most High. Because nobody forced you. It would be different if you was forced to say, okay, become Muslim or die, as we hear a lot of the story. But if nobody forces you and you accept a contract, and then you renege on that contract after being convinced and going through the formality of saying, okay, I think I'm accept that, then that's where the condemnation of the wrath of the Most High being on them. And the only exception that is indicated here is if a person who does so under duress, only for the sake of saving themselves or their family, or maybe loved ones, or the innocent from being harmed, and so they say, I was just playing, man, I ain't really down with all that, then that's the only exception. I hope that gives some clarity or answers your question.
Yes, sir. It's the exception, not the rule.
Right.
It's not a habit. It's under duress.
That's right.
Now, one more thing. I want to respect your time.
Okay, not a problem.
I want this to be an interfaith. So
okay.
You said that Islam, and we talked off camera. from the Bible and Christianity, but
Right.
I know Islam looks to the Bible as well,
Yeah.
to an extent. I'll say it again, you already
Especially the Old Testament. The New Testament, there's some of us, there's a lot more discrepancies. But everything before that, any Bible scholar will tell you that there are discrepancies and numerous discrepancies. I am not a Bible scholar. I read parts of the Bible I'm familiar with, but I'm not a Bible scholar, so I can't really give in-depth breakdowns of the Bible like that.
And I'm not a Quranic scholar.
Okay.
I hope we can help each other over time.
Much
man.
appreciated.
Now, just 3 passages. I'll be quick.
Not a problem.
Exodus chapter 2. Shifra and Puah, Hebrew midwives, lied to the king of Egypt. Or, I'm sorry, the Pharaoh of Egypt.
Okay.
And saved Israelite babies from being killed.
Right.
Or that's Exodus chapter 1. Joshua chapter 2. Rahab, the prostitute in Jericho, lied to the king of Jericho to save people not from her own country, Joshua and Caleb, and she was not condemned. In Mark chapter 14, Peter, favorite next to John Apostle, denied Jesus 3 times. The first 2 examples are people lying to their own government, to the heads of their government. Imagine like lying to the president. And then the last one is deny to your Savior. And yet none of these people were condemned. We're allowed to lie, you're allowed to lie, but sort of as an exception.
Because, see, the thing about lies is there is an evil that comes with it. And so that's why even white lies in Islam are strongly discouraged, except for in a situation like this. If some crackhead was coming around and they say, hey, man, when you see Ryan, man, hey, I'm going to get him. And he comes around, I'm sitting like, oh, man, hey. He said, hey, you seen Ryan? No, I ain't seen it, man. I ain't seen blah, blah. It's a case of me trying to keep a good and better situation versus me allow something terrible to go wrong. Now, if we're in a situation like as I live now, I'm in America, and I don't feel there's a reason for me to hide what I feel about being Muslim or being black or my political affiliations. I feel that and that's how it is. Generally, I can't recall there ever been a time in my life where I felt like I needed to deny who I am. I don't always appear, Islamic, so to speak, and it's not that I always go around and say, hey, I'm a Muslim, but I've never denied being one. Somebody tries to say, hey, you Muslim? Or I never said, what you talking about? That's my personal self. There are immigrants who come and maybe they feel like they won't be accepted by society, or they feel like they might be discriminated against, or they feel like somebody might accuse them of being terrorists or extremists or something like. And so what they do is they probably play it down. And I'm thinking that the reason that they may do that is because of fear of persecution or something like that. And maybe for them, this is acceptable. And maybe for us it's acceptable. I don't feel the need to, so I don't, that's not something that I do. It is my effort to be as transparent and as honest as possible. It's not just about me, but it's about giving a clear understanding for those who really want it. I'm not into ideals, because when you start looking at Islamic scholarship and history, you're going to find a lot of dark marks and blotches. I'm here to tell you it does exist, okay? It's not stuff we like to talk about. Our scholars are a lot ashameful to talk about it. But if it is what it is, it is what it is. And it's good to know those things so that you can have the proper perspective on how things really are. And I make an effort to understand those things and communicate them where it's appropriate and relevant.
In interest of time, I said it off camera, I'll say it on camera. You and I are allowed to be inarticulate. This is the first time I'm going to try to send you this. Let's build from here.
Okay.
I don't know where this is going to go. I want you to have the final word. Leave the people, whoever's watching, with a piece of wisdom. What's some wisdom you can leave the people?
Follow your heart. Follow your heart. Much of my learning and understanding comes from me being honest with myself and honest with my maker. That's the commitment that I've made. Be respectful and courteous to everyone else. So when you are honest with yourself and honest with the Creator, you're striving to understand things as they are versus the way that you want them to be. And that's the path to getting clarity. Because what happens is if you don't, you live under delusions. And those delusions drag you. They take you for a ride. If you want a person that's comfortable in delusions, then continue. But if you really want to get to the bottom of things so that you can be empowered with what you understand and know, try to see things the way that they are. I'm open to questions, challenges. I'm not a person who feels like I have to defend my religion because you're dishonoring me, that, this, or the other. It is my honest belief that Islam is the truth. Okay? That's my belief. That's my conviction. It's not a blue team versus red team. We got to be right versus... No, it's just that this is what makes sense. And so far, when I read the Quran and I measure the Quran with the signs of what I see, really, honestly, that's the only aspect of Islam that I've found that has been infallible. because a lot of the theology has problems. A lot of our philosophies has problems. A lot of the doctrines have problems. A lot of the cultural aspects have problems. You will find there are some benefits, and even the benefit outweighs the harm. Hold on for 1 second.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Transparency, honesty, sincerity, because ultimately, I've said this before and I'll say it again, ultimately the judgment with the Most High is, what's up, bro? Shea butter.
Hey, let's say goodbye for the camera.
Okay. I think we have a few more months. Yeah.
All right, so just you're dropping your wisdom for the folks at home.
Oh yeah, I was just about being sincere.
Yes.
You know, if you're sincere,
Okay.
then it's that's your best protection, and that'll really give you the best fruits. I do debate. Huh? I do debate, but I don't debate to win the debate. I debate so we understand who knows what, or understands. Okay. So if you know the truth, I need to find that out. And if I do know the truth, then perhaps you'll be able to be persuaded by my information that I have.
Yes, sir. Well, Tijani, this will be an ongoing thing.
Okay.
God bless you.
Same
God
likewise.
bless
I
you.
hope it blessing, man.
Yes, sir.
Let me, we'll continue.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your patience.
Take care.
Yes, sir. Take care.